Hello, everyone. Here we are at Lore of Neverwinter, and we are going to run through the end of the Echoes of Prophecy. This, as we've covered in 2 and a little bit videos before, is a kind of special event that the Neverwinter MMO has put on. And it's interesting because it ties into the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons book, but also into previous content that the Neverwinter game has had, which ties into the Tyranny of Dragons storyline, which we've seen before. And this all is linked into the original Neverwinter campaign setting from which the game draws a lot of its lore. And what we're going to see that's interesting in this 3rd chapter is it pulls together the various ideas and kind of confirms some suspicions from before. And if you recall last time, and I'm going to use my barbarian for this, previously known as a great weapon fighter. So this camp here where I'm found is located right by the Acquisitions Incorporated airship in the middle of the city of Neverwinter, in this quarter where all of the players kind of start in, which has the Hall of Justice up at the top. And all of the quests come from Elminster, we've talked about as one of the most powerful magic users in the land. Elminster has the shard of a goddess inside of him, so he/they are super powerful. In the previous chapters, we worked with the various factions in Elminster, who are gathered in this camp, to address some sort of tear in the weave or altering of the weave that was taking place. The weave is that which ties all of magic in the Forgotten Realms together. So it's what allows for a magical world to be functioning properly. And somebody was altering it, and particularly in a way that was necromantic. We've quickly found that this seemed to be the Cult of the Dragon, and that what they were doing was altering the weave in some way related to what the Netherese had done, an ancient people who ruled Faerun for some time, or were sort of the strongest force into Faerun for some time. And then they had a cataclysm, and they retreated into, the survivors retreated, the majority of them retreated into the Plane of Shadow, and there they were changed themselves and came back with all of this sort of shadow power as the Shadovar. So all of this was sort of part of what was going on in the past. So now in this 3rd chapter, we're going to go see what it is that's taking place. So we will go here through Dagger Way, one of the small alleyways in the city. All of this is found in the sort of original Neverwinter map in the book, and they add some neat kind of aspects to it here. So we'll go up to the Hall of Justice, and we've been told to speak with Kabatos, who is a wizard who serves Lord Neverember. You can see Lord Neverember here. You can see him here. That's what he looks like. He is the person who leads the city of Neverwinter. We've talked a little bit about his past, which is a little bit shady. So now Kabato Stormi. I think we first met him in the Storm King's Thunder part of the Neverwinter MMO, but he's become a big figure in the city. He is a member of the Arcane Brotherhood, which always makes me think that this could be trouble down the road. Appears to wear a robe of eyes, which is kind of cool. So we come to him with the knowledge from the last time, which says that there were these Orbs of Draconic influence. I thought this was kind of very funny, because first we talked to Elminster, and Elminster says, Orbs of Draconic influence. Well, I don't know what they are. So he says, go talk to Kabatos. And I'm like, really? You don't know what they are? I kind of think you should know what they are. But then we go to Kabatos, and we ask him, do you know about the Orbs of Draconic influence? Oh, yeah, I know. They're said to contain powerful magic. Yeah, I don't know what that could be that's going on with these things. Are you kidding me? Like, 2 of you are super powerful. I don't know. Also, Orbs of Draconic influence, I think the answer is in the name. I think it's Draconic influence. But let's see. Where else can I learn about this? Go to the Sage's shop, search for a book that Mordenkainen, the probably most powerful wizard in the world of Greyhawk, a whole different campaign setting, wrote. Okay, sure. So you guys know nothing about what happened for your dragons, but this guy from Greyhawk does. All right, fine. While I'm at it, I'm just going to pick up this quest just to save time for my own self. But, okay, so let's go to the sage's shop and humor these old wizards that apparently have really bad memories. That's just the way it goes sometimes. Gorgeous view there. You can see the Moonstone Mass Tavern off in the distance. Always neat to see the state of disrepair and elements of the spell plague that are still around with floating chunks in the air and things like that. Year after year, and we still don't quite fix up the city, but hey, that's fine. I guess it's more fun that way. Yeah, okay, I forgot where I'm going. Oh yeah, Sage's bookshop. So we'll go to the Sage's bookshop, which is right here. There are a number of quests in Neverwinter that take you to this place. This is a place you've been to many times. And we go up the stairs. And this is a really small library. It has had so many important books. I don't know why someone just doesn't spend a weekend and read all these. All right, here we get the lore. Ages past, elves and humans waged a terrible war against evil dragons. When the world seemed doomed, powerful wizards came together and worked their greatest magic, forging 5 orbs of draconic influence, or dragon orbs. There are 5 chromatic dragons, so that kind of lends yourself to think towards what kind of dragons these were all about. To help them defeat the dragons, 1 orb was taken to each of the 5 wizard towers, where they were used to speed the war towards a victorious end. They used the orbs to lure the dragons in, then destroyed the beasts with powerful magic. This comes right out of Fizban's, which has an entry for this artifact for dragon orbs. Dragon orbs come from the Dragonlance novels, or at least appear in the Dragonlance novels. That's where I don't think they originated there, but they've sort of become a big lore item because they're a huge part of the story of what's going on there. And they sort of feel a little bit like the orb of Palanthas that is in Lord of the Rings. They sort of have this, you know, if you're not powerful enough, they take you over because they have this evil dragon presence inside of them. So they're pretty neat. Like, it's pretty cool the way this all works. Etched crystal globe about 10 inches in diameter. I think the original lore talks about being sort of like emerald colored. It grows when you use it, and you can see sort of mist swirling in it. All right. So Elminster couldn't remember. Kavatos couldn't remember. Mordenkainen from an entirely different plane told us all about this. I think if they'd done this, they almost should have used someone from the Dragonlance setting, which actually, you know, would have made more sense. But anyway, we've got the information we need, and now let's go laugh at what Elminster says next to us. Elminster has the fine tradition of many mages of making us feel useless because he sends us on an errand and then has all this other information that like doesn't do anything to help us, but then later says, oh yeah, I knew all that. So let's see what he says here.
Well, thank you for jogging my memory. Well,
Jogging my memory. So literally you could have maybe like, I don't know, rubbed your temple or had some tea and remembered. Only 3 orbs of draconic influence are known to still exist. Infamous for granting wielders the uncanny ability to control a dragon's mind, which is, I mean, draconic influence. It's pretty much what we would have guessed. So, I don't know. It's a little bit of a weird start to this quest. Pretty laughable. And a bit of a shame because I think the lore of these orbs of Dragonkind is really cool. And one of the pieces that's sort of, I think, left out of that book of Mordenkainen, which is really what's in the Fizban's D&D book, is that these orbs may have, in the Forgotten Realms, caused various events where dragons gathered together and swept across the land. That's pretty important and pretty interesting. The other thing is, I think older lore actually says that the orbs may have been created by dragons themselves rather than by humans, which is what this story told us. So who knows which one of those is correct. In this edition, it seems to be human created. Then out of nowhere, Elminster says, are the cultists forcing dragons to become Dracoliches? If so, this problem runs far deeper than I ever could have imagined. It's a weird leap of faith that he makes here, but I guess the idea is that we would have somehow uncovered something about this, and we're just jumping ahead story-wise. That, I guess, seems to sharpen into focus some of the rumors that we talked about in the last few times, which is the question of what is the Cult of the Dragon doing? And I get the feeling the game's trying to have a little bit of everything, and maybe that's what 5e is doing as well. The Cult of the Dragon originally built on the prophecies that Sammaster, this powerful cultist who really started the Cult of the Dragon, put together. In studying old texts, he said that the prophecy was that undead dragons would take over the world. And he wanted to usher in this era of undead dragons. He later became a lich. Maybe it was destroyed, maybe not. Then, with the new 5th edition, when it came out and had the Tyranny of Dragons storyline, that storyline told us a new group of cultists came forward to say, hey, that prophecy was wrong, or our interpretation was wrong. It's actually living dragons that the prophecy is telling us about. So we need to convince living dragons to work with us together to bring Tiamat into this world, the goddess of evil dragons and many other aspects. A lot to her lore. But then that was the Tyranny of Dragons storyline, which Heroes prevented, both in the Neverwinter game and in the tabletop world. So then the question became, well, what do the cultists think now? And it looks like now that side that is back to the Dracoliches is at least, it's not a minority anymore. It looks like maybe that's either there's a good number of them or it's the majority of the Cult of the Dragon. But that's what this storyline seems to suggest. So I find that very fascinating lore-wise.
A dear old friend of mine has offered to help us.
So now Alminster tells us to go find a dear old friend of his. She is an expert on dragons. The moment I read this and going to the coast and that the name of the friend is Gisentraxia, I thought, okay, this is a pretty funny joke because someone who knows a lot about dragons and has a name like that is a dragon. That's not going to be a surprise for me. All right, so we got a new spot on our map, Alminster's friend. And we go there and shock, surprise. Oh my goodness, who's going to be here? Is it maybe, just maybe? Yeah, of course, it's a big, huge dragon. She is either, I think, brass, maybe, looks what she looks like.
It's good to meet those who come from afar.
So she's interested in meeting ships along the coastline, because a lot of times dragons either like to destroy them or just follow them around. Looks like she's maybe a little nicer, likes watching them glide along the water.
Dispensing with the pleasantries, are we?
So this is really funny. You read this text and she says, like, oh, Elminster forgot to tell you I'm a dragon. Oh, by the way, I've been talking to Elminster. So, like, literally the moment we leave his side, he says, go find my old friend. And he apparently calls her up on, like, a sending spell and says, hey, here's what's going down. So it's like, well, why did you send me if you could just talk to her? Like, okay. But I guess the idea is that the cultists have an ancient Netherese codex. We found part 1 before. This was an ancient book that was found in what should have been the last, the first flying city, and the only one to survive the apocalypse that hit the Netherese. It went off into the realm of shadow, and then came back, and eventually crashed because Elminster destroyed it. So that book had 2 parts. Hey, we got the first part, and apparently they have the second part. And they're going to combine those ancient Netherese teachings with the Orb of Draconic influence to try to convince chromatic dragons to go along with their version of the prophecy and become Dracoliches. So we have to find the other tome. And basically says, but I'll help you, but first you got to help me with something else. Which, interestingly, happens to all be tied together. But... so she says, my partner, haven't seen my partner in several days, must focus on locating them. But there were some slain dragons that are being probably brought back to life by this Orb of Draconic influence, where they're going to form the right of the Dracolich upon us. So basically, it's really related. It's just instead of first going and getting the book, Gisentraxia wants us to go off and stop what the cultists are doing at these various parts to raise Dracoliches, which, hey, that seems like a really good idea. So let's go do that. We get a portal, and we can choose one of 3 places. So I'm going to choose the kind of most boring one to travel through, and we'll just go to Ebon Downs. I've been saying I'll do a stream of Ebon Downs at some point because it is a sort of fun place. And we're going to just try to race past these cultists, see if we pull it off. Someone's already here sort of doing this initial part, so we'll just kill some cultists for a bit and have some fun here while we wait for it to reset. I did these quests once before. I like to do it once and then think about what's going on. So now we come here and sort of investigate and see, oh, okay, yeah, here are the bones of that dragon. We were here last time, right? One of the first video, we came here and saw that there's some cultists doing a rite, and they had a bunch of diamonds around here. So none of this is a tremendous surprise. So we'll just wait till that resets. Oh, here they are. So now we find some cultists that are trying to do some sort of a rite. That person had a book in their hand. And then we see Vartalingorix's Shade. And that's what's kind of interesting here is that it's not just a Dracolich, it's actually a Shade. So that seems to be the real answer to the puzzle. They don't make a whole lot out of this in the storyline, which is a little, because this to me the most interesting thing is it combines, what we sort of suspected if we were following the plot lines. The Cult of the Dragon is combining Netherese magic with the Orb of Draconic influence to try to create these shades. All right, so we went to Ebon Downs. Now we're going to go to Icespire Peak. Yeah, and so, what's not clear to me is, well, I didn't see the Orb of Draconic influence there, but somehow that was going on. So that's a little interesting. Maybe they just needed someone showed up with the orb and then ran away, or maybe you don't need the orb. I don't know. It's a little confusing that way. But we're going to go to this goblin camp and through to the area where the dragon had been slain, Merothrax. There are a lot of dragon cultists here. And we'll again wait for them to show up here. Lots of people are doing the quest, so we see other players coming here too as well. There we go. We got a fire acolyte. Resurrect this dragon. No, you won't. And then the Shade of Merothrax is here, and we will take that down fairly easily. This is one of my main characters, so no slouch. Plus we got another character there. These fights, I think, are fairly boring. The least interesting part to me of what's going on here. So, all right, we've stopped 2 cases where the cult was going to do things. Now we'll go to a third place, which is the Neverdeath Graveyard, one of my favorite spots in Neverwinter. Has some really great quests in this area, as I've said in the past. Get on our mount. This is one of the special mounts you can get in this event. And we are going to run past everybody, leave kobolds and cultists behind, and go straight to the area. So here we are stopping this third resurrection and Dracolich raising, shade raising that the dragon told us about. Pretty neat cemetery here. Good, there you are. Doing the ritual here. Barbarian Rage. And just as before, we have a shade here. And boom. Take very quickly. And now we go back to Gisentraxia. Oops, there we go. Elminster's friend. So I like this, from a Dungeons & Dragons perspective, storyline perspective, I like this concept a lot of taking 2 powers, the Cult of the Dragon, the Netherese, and combining them and kind of combining their threats, this whole capability of turning things into shades, and the concept of raising Dracoliches.
You have proven yourself a friend. The Cult of the Dragon has grown bold.
So nothing really particularly interesting here. We can also ask what has happened to your friend. Somewhere in the Well of Dragons, but maybe Dragonbone Vale. I don't know. So we keep talking. Now she'll tell us, now that we've helped, And the Willow Dragons is apparently also where we can find the secondary's tome. Then take it to Neverdeath Graveyard, and there's a spot where shadows are strong. This ties into previous things we did before. We had some quests where we traveled to the Shadowfell through that spot, so that makes sense. All right, and a graveyard is a place that makes sense to have that going on. We'll go to the Willow Dragons. You can see my video that covers this whole place in detail. It's one of the really neat zones in the game. Really beautiful. It's just an amazing place. It's a really cool desert. It's from the Tyranny of Dragons adventure, and the idea is that the cult in that adventure are amassing treasure here to bring about to draw Tiamat into this world, and they need to do various things to accomplish that. Elminster's here and normally in this place, and one of the fun things is that when you come to talk to him here, he now has an additional text. Didn't I just see you in Protector's Enclave? What are you doing here? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm looking for a dear friend's mate. So it kind of all comes back this idea of, the dragon talking to him and just Intraxia, and he says, all right, I'll go see if I can find your friend. So it's a nice way of explaining, why are you here? But it does also make you feel like, I feel like you could have done this all by yourselves. Like, you guys keep being where you sent me and knowing what you asked me to find out and all of that. So, but it's funny. That's the way video games work sometimes. So now we're going to go off to where the cultist is. I've been here before, but otherwise I would just look it up on my map. Really beautiful landscape. There's a video that covers the Dragonflight event, and there are some of the spots where dragons show up. Very cool part of the game. Hey, look, free gold. And here we are going to go to this far corner, and yeah, there it is. The High Priest of Sammaster shows up. We do a quick battle, and someone else is here also battling, and we are able to get the second tome that we needed. So if we look in our inventory, there it is. Full Tanthar Necromancy Volume 2, the second half of a two-part treatise on undead metamagic written by the Netherese of Thul Tanthar. That's that old floating city that went into the Shadowfell. With the right amount of powerful spellcasters and control of the weave, you can convert large swaths of living creatures into undead. Elminster had thought that this had been destroyed, but clearly that is not the case. So we had been told to go to the Neverdeath Graveyard with the tome, so we will do that. We're going to read this in a shadowy area to apparently learn what is taking place. That part's a little unclear as to exactly what the logic is there, but we were told to do that. So we go back through the Neverdeath Graveyard, which is within the city of Neverwinter. We're almost there to the part where this takes place. So we read it here, and what's interesting is a Thayan wizard shows up here. Oh, what happened? Huh. Yeah, you can battle that Thayan wizard, but I guess if I was able to interact it before the wizard attacked me, so I did not battle the Thayan. That Thayan wizard shows up, battles you, and then you can read it. But I guess someone had done the quest probably recently, and so it didn't cause a problem. In fact, I can just teleport back. So I now have, I have read the book. I know the location, or at least I have information that I can give to Elminster. It's a little rough sometimes, this quest line. So, all right, back to the city of Neverwinter. Back to Elminster's side. Hello, Acquisitions Incorporated headquarters. And here we go. Yeah, totally slipped your mind, or maybe I left it on purpose. All right. Pains me to hear she lost track of her mate. The Harpers are searching far and wide for Palhavorathan. I searched for that name and for just Intraxia. I don't see any lore about these dragons. These seem like new dragon names. There are a lot of dragons that have extensive lore, and these are not amongst them. We recovered the second book. Never imagined I'd see both parts of the necromantic treatise of Voltanthar. I'll ensure that they are disposed of properly this time. All right. And then our final quest is, hey, go to where we now know they are somehow, and do whatever you need to do to stop the cultists who are up to no good. All right. And the idea is, it's not sort of super well explained here, but the idea is this will be where the bosses are, right? This is where the cultists are who are orchestrating all of this plan to bring back tons of dragons as, I guess, sort of shade Dracoliches. That's the concept. I don't know if that story super carries out, or that it feels as epic as maybe it should. It's I think especially in games like this where you can quickly kill off a shade dragon, it's like, well, how hard is it? And you forget that, well, I'm some incredibly high level, 20th level hero that is able to stand up to all kinds of amazing threats and defeat demigods and things like that. So that's why it maybe doesn't seem as terrible as it should. But we go to the far corner here of this area, and we're going to go into this cave where the cultists are. And this is actually fun because I'd seen this little cave before and wondered, well, I wonder if someday they're going to use that for something. And sure enough, there's actually another one like this that they haven't used. So I'm curious whether that'll show up later. And it has been said that this Echoes of Prophecy is going to lead into the next adventure that we get. So we'll see. That was fast. All right, so we're just going to wade through these. In previous videos, I talked about the different types of dragon cultists. I like the cultist figures a lot because they tend to be sort of very interesting foes with neat capabilities where, they all have different ties to different chromatic dragons. So some of them, will have poison and others acid, and they'll travel with drakes and things like that. That makes them very interesting foes. We can see here from the map, this is the exact same map that we were in last time when it was Undermountain. I find that a little bit lazy. It's like, all DMs, we have a time when we just reuse a map. So I'm not being too harsh, but it's sort of the like, oh, look, we have to get in here, but there's a wooden door in our way. So we're going to go this long way around. Okay, fine. That's the way it goes. I can't ride my mount, so I'll do a bit of running. All right, on we go. Lots of cultists. But as I said, you've seen me fight these before, and so it's not particularly terrible if I wipe them out relatively quickly in most of these battles when they don't freeze me solid. Some of these you can kind of just run past and not even bother with. Sometimes there are sort of different groups that are gathered together. You'll have a group that's meant to be there stationary and another's just sort of randomly walking around. So you might encounter several at the time. That makes it harder if you're lower level. But I've done this with most of my characters, and it did not, prove very challenging. By the way, the companion I'm using is Regis, if you recognize him from the Companions of the Hall, Driz Doradin and friends. That's sort of fun. Murderize more of these fellas. Alright, no friendships allowed in Cultist World. And we are just about there. So we get into the Inner Sanctum. It's kind of fun. I like this sort of idea. You've got to drop down off of an elevated area. You can see the broken areas of like a bridge or something like that. And down below is this High Priest of Sammaster conducting a ritual. must be stopped. I'm just gonna tear into this guy. We've fought him several times now, including just minutes ago. He looks like the exact same guy I defeated in the cult of what do you call it, in the Willow Dragons. So, but he was conducting a ritual, and that dragon, of course, is not going to just stay there. Noxagalon now rises. Cool looking black dragon. I love the look of black dragons. Just really cool that the horns just look so neat. Oh, because I'm using powers for nothing. You're not ready for this. So actually, I'll slow down on this guy and let him sort of do some attacks so you can sort of appreciate it. It can sort of send you flying. The breath weapon, of course, will melt you with caustic acid. And then he has a neat thing, this sort of thing where it sort of poisons the ground in some way. It's pretty neat. So the red zone sort of follows me around and will deal damage. So that's kind of cool. I like that a lot. Otherwise, sort of flies up, I think, and does this sort of spreading thing. Pools of acid. These can be really bad if you're on them. Like, they can do a fair amount of damage. Ooh. Probably heal myself before I die. That was close. All right. I think we've seen what it does. Time to take you down. It's fun. Neat, sort of boss things. I like that whole... the various attacks are neat. I have slain that dragon that they were trying to turn into a Dracolich with the orbs. I took down what must have been the lead cultist. And we're done, apparently. I find it a little strange because I didn't recover an orb that I know of, but I did recover both parts of the books, and maybe the idea is that they don't know how to do this anymore now that I took out that guy. I didn't find a whole lot of completion. Like, I don't feel fulfilled by the Echoes of Prophecy campaign, I'm sorry to say. Balance has been restored to the weave. Do you feel it? You've done it, Carla Shieldbreaker. Okay. I don't know what was doing that sort of weave alteration. Lore-wise, typically, altering the weave has been really powerful magic, like something that Shar herself was doing through the Netherese at, a big, huge, powerful well. They did say here earlier that they were trying to create a mythal, right? And so a really powerful, magical place, but we didn't see that. So it's a little strange here. I don't exactly understand how we restored the weave or prevented its demise, but maybe the idea is Elminster forgot to tell us, which would make sense. But there you have it. That's the Echoes of Prophecy campaign. 3 parts to it that we went through. What's going on with the weave? How are the Netherese involved, and the Thayans, and the Cult of the Dragon? And then the last part here where we work with this dragon to find where they're located, where they're doing things, and bring it down to a close. It's not a bad campaign, but it has a few plot caps. Lore-wise, what I find most fascinating is this seems to indicate a couple possibilities. One is that, the 5 factions are not dead. We do see them here, gathered here, and I think that's really cool, at least in the Neverwinter game, that these will continue to be elements. I like the 5 factions. I'm a little sad to see them not show up as often in the D&D books, the official D&D books. I'm glad to still see them in the game. I think the idea that the Cult of Dragon is going back to their old ways, but trying out some new tricks and looking at the prophecy in different ways, I think that's a really cool way. Dracoliches are awesome, so are live dragons. So having possibilities for both, that's a win. I call this a pretty fun campaign overall. And the rewards were neat if you play the game, but there's the lore of it. That's the part that interests me the most. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you had a great time too, please consider checking out the rules for collaborative campaign creation. You can find that on DriveThruRPG or for free if you sign up for my mailing list at alphastream.org. You can also go to the DM's Guild and find all of these other fine products that I've had a hand in working on, and as well as others that have collaborated on other projects with other people. If you want to see previous streams, they're all on YouTube. And I should have some pretty neat news coming in pretty soon, because I have just had someone help me with a new logo. So if you go check out YouTube, or if you're looking on Twitch, you can see my new logo is on display. And this is a hint of new things to come. So I'll look forward to sharing that news with you. Take care.